Good morning, everyone. My name is Taryn, and thank you so much for stopping back at my channel, Nicole Flower House. On this channel, I like to share all my progress and updates about my cut flower garden. It's a raised bed garden, and I'm located in Zone 7B. The first thing I'm working on today is this Strawberry Hill Rose. I just found out when I was looking through my catalog that this is actually a climbing rose. I didn't realize that. All of my other roses are shrub roses, so I'm trying to put some kind of support here so that this rose can climb a little bit. It won't climb super vigorously. It recommended something around the height of 6 to 10 feet. This is just temporary for this season. I would love to someday put like a pretty arbor or something nice right here, but for now I'm just very carefully trying to work some kind of support around this rose to keep it more upright. I did notice throughout the season last year that it was kind of growing more than the other roses, and it was taking over the bed next to it. It was getting entangled in the mums. So this kind of explains that. And I wanted to just take a moment to appreciate these thorns on this rose. It's so pretty, but they kind of almost look like a dinosaur to me. What do you think? And despite all of our cold and dreary weather, there are still signs of new growth and life on these roses, which is always fun to see. The next thing I'm working on is putting the wire mesh over my hoops so I can get my frost cloth set up. And once the winter weather is over, I will be using the hoops as support for my flowers. These are just basic wire cutters that I got from a craft store, and that's what I use to cut the wire mesh down to the correct size. I'm just using cotton yarn to tie it to the hoops. It's biodegradable. I have a lot of scraps laying around, so nothing fancy. I'm going to start over here on this bed with the eucalyptus in it. Now, it would have been more ideal to get the wire mesh support on here before the eucalyptus was this tall, but I didn't get around to it, so I'm going to work on that now. First, I figured out about how big of a piece I needed, and then I just used my wire cutters to cut it down to the correct size, and worked on attaching it to the hoops using this string. Since the eucalyptus was already taller than the hoops, I had to be careful when putting the wire mesh down that I was getting the eucalyptus to come up through the mesh and not injure it. If the mesh had been in place before the eucalyptus was that tall, it would naturally grow through the wires on its own. When deciding which holes I was guiding the eucalyptus through, I was trying to make sure that each plant was as upright as possible. This will make sure that I get some nice straight stems that I can use when I cut for my arrangements, and it's good to have some curvy pieces in there for interest, but for the most part you want to make sure your plants are nice and upright and tall. And when I'm using the string to tie the mesh to the hoops, I try to tie a bow as much as possible, or something that is easy to undo and not make a knot, just so in case I change my mind at some point or need to move things around, it's not super hard to get the wire mesh off and make those adjustments. I'm always trying to find ways to think about how my garden might change in the future and make things a little easier on myself. So that's just a little trick I like to use. Undoing knots in the garden is hard to do if you don't have scissors or a knife, so tying the bows this way may make it easier on me in the future. Here I have some eucalyptus that is outside of the wire mesh that I want to give some support to, so I'm just kind of looping it to the hoop itself. I'm not going to tie this super tight to the hoop so that it has room to grow. It's nice and loose and there's some space available. I also had quite a few eucalyptus leaning on the other side, so I'm just taking a simple bamboo stake, putting it in, and gently tying the eucalyptus to that to keep it nice and straight and upright. And keeping your plants upright is one of the tricks to, not really tricks, but one of the keys to getting nice, straight, and long stems for cutting. The more you can keep your plants growing straight up, the better your stems are going to be and the longer they're going to be. And even if your plants are close together, as they compete for light, they also grow taller also, which is one of the reasons I can plant single cut sunflowers and tulips and things like that so close together. Here is a closer look at the eucalyptus coming through the green mesh. There's plenty of space in there for it to grow, and it's nice and supported now. I've also left plenty of space between the mesh and the bottom of the bed so I can reach my hand in underneath. That'll make cutting easier if I want to cut something way down at the base of the plant. I probably won't be cutting the eucalyptus that close to the ground. As I've talked about before, eucalyptus are actually trees. But if you were cutting on a different flower like zinnias or cosmos, it is a good idea to cut way down at the base. So just to be consistent, I left that space down there. Now this spot here is where the mums used to be. I've just cut them way back all the way down to the ground, which is fine. They will come back. But if you remember from previous videos, the mums got very tall, and when we had some windstorms, they blew completely over. They didn't break, but they were flopped all the way down. So this wire mesh that I'm putting over top of this part of the bed will definitely help with that next season. Now this project is definitely taking me longer than I'd hoped. I was really wanting to get all 10 of my boxes done today, but that's clearly not going to happen. But as I went along, I did get a little faster. I was able to just kind of count the squares to figure out a good length to cut them without having to measure, and it started moving a little quicker. But again, this is going to take me longer than I thought, like most projects do. Now at this point, tying with the yarn, the cotton yarn, has been working pretty well, but I decided to try out using little plastic rings that are used to trellis up tomato plants. So I'm going to use these. They happen to fit exactly around my PVC pipe hoops. The PVC hoops are 1/2 inch in diameter, so these clips work well. I'm pretty surprised at how long these clips have lasted too. I've had these about 3 years now. They don't seem very durable, and I have broken some of them, but they've lasted a good long time, and our sun is pretty intense. They were really inexpensive, and again, they're used to help keep tomatoes trellised, but they're going to work fine in this situation. I'm also trying to line up the 2 different pieces of wire mesh as best as I can at the top where they overlap, so that the openings that the plants can go through are a similar size as compared to the rest of the mesh. So I'm just trying to line those up as best as I can and then secure the 2 pieces together at the top. At this point in the activity, my hands are also getting pretty cold. So that's another reason I kind of switched to using both the clips and the string to tie on. But the clips are working well. That's one thing I had to get used to this year, was going outside and just doing a little bit of work in the garden when it was cold out. At least it was sunny this day, so it wasn't terrible. But last season, I had all these plans to work on this kind of stuff during the winter, and when it was cold, I just didn't want to go out and do it, so I didn't. But this season, I'm just committing myself to maybe an hour at a time. I just tell myself if I'm miserable, I'll just come back inside. But so far, usually once I get out there, I feel a little better. I get warmed up because I'm moving around and doing stuff, and it hasn't been so bad. This way, in the spring, I can devote all of my time and energy to getting the seedlings started and out into the garden on time, instead of having to do structural things and build beds and put up mesh. As I was putting the frost cloth over top of this wire mesh, I noticed it kept getting stuck on the little edges of the wire that was still sticking up. So I didn't anticipate that, and I'm going to have to go back and fix that. I'll basically take some pliers or something like that and just make sure I bend all of the edges of the wire under so they're not sticking up at all and won't get caught on the frost cloth. Now this frost cloth is the lightest one available, so it's not very thick, but it's very fragile, so it tears easily, so I'll have to take care of those wires to help protect the frost cloth as well. Now here's something interesting I wanted to show you. My tulips from last year are actually poking up through the bed where I didn't remove them. I plant my tulips as annuals, so I'm not sure if these will even produce flowers or good stems or anything usable, but I'll leave them in there and find out. So when I saw those old bulbs popping up, I wondered about the new ones that I had planted, so I went to my new tulip bed, and sure enough, a few of them were starting to pop up. Something to notice, on the old tulip bed, all of the tulips were popping up at once. That was a mistake I made last year. This year I made sure to get different varieties of tulips that matured at different times, so I wouldn't get all of my tulips at the same time, and I'll have an extended bloom period this year. The mesh will also support the frost cloth so it doesn't cave under heavy rain or ice or snow. Here's a look at what that looks like underneath. Pretty cool. And that's all I have for you this week. I know it was a short video, but I don't have a whole lot going on during the winter except these structural updates. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, and the best way you can support my channel is to subscribe and share it with your flower-loving friends. Thanks everyone. I'll see you next time. Bye.